Morning, everybody, and welcome to Thrive. Today is a wonderful day because we're going to be talking about the importance of cultivating good relationships with my good friend Robin Banks.
It takes a bigger person to be able to step out of your wound and allow your partner's wound to be the one that we're working on, and you'll get your turn. So know you'll get your turn. And it's not, by the way, let me just say this, it is not easy, but it's worth it.
Truly come from that place of wanting to understand how it affected you and how it made you feel and what my part was in that. And I take ownership for that. And you do the same. Suddenly the relationship, the relating just evolves to a whole different level. Morning, everybody, and welcome to Thrive. Today is a wonderful day because we're going to be talking about the importance of cultivating good relationships with my good friend Robin Banks. And it is my pleasure to welcome Robin back. He is an international speaker and mind power expert, but he's also a great lover of people and relationships. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with him today. Robin, how are you doing?
I am very, very well in these interesting times. I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't experienced challenges, but I don't think I know anybody who hasn't experienced challenges. And I think it's just all part of the growth curve that we are on in the planet. So I'm very, very well today. I'm very
good. I think that's part of the key is that we are all going through challenges at the moment, but it's to remember that you don't have to become the challenge. You can still have your moments of happiness and your moments of peace within these challenging times. And one of the things that is coming up, certainly for me and for so many of our followers, is that relationships, human connection is one of the most important things. I mean, after all, guys, what are we here to do? We are here to love, to show love, to share love, to express love, to experience love. And so relationships are at the heart of that. Your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, whether it is a romantic relationship or whether it is a friendship. How do we cultivate good relationships? And Robin, you brought this topic to me as a focal point, a speaking point for today. Why did you decide on this specifically?
Well, a couple of reasons. One of my favorite quotes is actually by a lady called Carolyn Mace. It's actually, her surname is spelled M-Y-S-S, Carolyn Mace. And I have been studying her for a good 30 years. And she's really a spiritual teacher. I think she's one of the awakened teachers on the planet at the moment. Mm-hmm. And she said something once that really caught my ear, because that was an audio I was listening to. And she said that relationships are the highest form of spiritual growth on the planet. And I really loved that quote, that relationships are the highest form of spiritual growth on the planet. And the reason she said that, and I relate to this, is that no matter how amazing you might think you are in the world, and or no matter what your achievements are, where you really get to see yourself is in relationship, in partnership, and not just relationship with your significant other. I think that is probably a big part of it, but with other people in general. And I can certainly attest to that because I speak to lots and lots of people. My work inspires people to take charge of their lives, and people feel very empowered and then lavish a lot of praise on me, like, "Oh, Robin, you've changed my life." And then you go back home and you get seen for actually, yeah, but you've got shadows as well. And your relationships will show up your shadow sides as well. And it really is a way of looking in the mirror and getting to see who you are really being. Not who you think you are being, but it's a good reflection of how you are really being. And I think relationships are there to test us in a healthy way. They are there to invite us to grow and evolve, to see ourselves and to constantly evolve. So for me, why this topic is so strong for me. And I love that you're using the word cultivating successful relationships. I actually called it building successful relationships. And both words are actually, but both words, I love that you actually use the word cultivating, because I call it building successful relationships, because the whole idea is that you actually have to build it. You have to work at it. You know, in the beginning of a relationship, when you first meet somebody, I'm always amazed at how we are willing to go out of our way to make sure that our partner feels loved and feels appreciated and feels valued. And like, what else can I do for you, baby? Like, you know, would you like me to, you know, can I wash the dishes? Can I pick up anything from on the way home? Or, you know, when you're trying to impress someone, you dress well, you look after yourself, you groom yourself, and you make sure that you're at your absolute best because you're trying to woo your partner. But what tends to happen is, as you get into the relationship, and depending how long it is, as time goes on, you kind of just let it all start hanging out, and you know, you stop appreciating your partner, you start going out of your way the way you used to, and it's like, well, why do I have to do that? You're supposed to do that. And you know, whereas in the beginning it's like, you know, I'll do anything, you know, we'll say, and sometimes your partner will say, well, take out the garbage. Why don't you take out the garbage? Why do I have to take out the garbage? It's a constant invitation to make sure that you are always upping your game, And I think, and I mean this in a healthy way, because somebody misunderstood me in an interview. When I said relationships take work, I didn't mean like it's a drag. Like, oh my God, I have to work on my relationship. It's such a drag. No. What I mean by it takes work is it's a constant invitation to up your game. It's a constant invitation to grow and evolve and say, okay, how can I be more? How can I be better? How can I make my partner love me even more? How can I love my partner even more? John Keogh, who you know is my mentor, and he's written many books, but his relationship for me, Susana, is an inspiration. You know John, and you know his wife, Sylvia. But what I love about John is he treats his wife like a queen, literally. They've been together for 27 years. And every single time he will say this quote. Now, I do think some of it is mind power, but because it's mind power, it's also true. Oh, Robbie, it just keeps getting better and better. I love her more today than I've ever loved her. I don't think I've ever loved her this much. I just keep loving her more. The more I get to know her, the more I love her and appreciate her. I'm so lucky to have you, my love. I'm so blessed to have you. And literally, he lavishes praise on her in a genuine way, not in a in a like inauthentic way. And he goes out of his way to surprise her, and to like he's constantly like doing like little secret trips. And he says, well, you know, we're going away for 5 days from the 18th to the 23rd of August. Where are we going? Oh, it'll be revealed. Oh, but I want to know where I'm going. Well, all you need to know right now is you need to keep those 5 days open. And then as the days get closer, he says, oh, by the way, you need to pack for very warm weather. Warm weather? Where are we going? Are we going to Hawaii? Are we going to Florida? Where are we going? All you need to know for now is pack for warm weather. Will I need a bathing suit? Yes, you'll definitely need a bathing suit. Where are we going? And literally, it will not be revealed to her until they arrive at the airport. And they have to check in, and then she gets to see where they're going. But then she still has no idea where they're going in that particular place. And so constantly, and when I say constantly looking for ways to keep her feeling loved, keeping her feeling appreciated, keeping her feeling adored. And sometimes I don't feel like doing that. Go ahead.
But also keeping her excited and intrigued. You know, I think that one of the big challenges in long-term relationships is, you know, we all want to feel comfortable in knowing, but we also still need that little spark of the unknown to keep the fire alive, the passion alive in a relationship. If you've just tuned in, I see a lot of people have just tuned in. I'm Susana Kennedy, and you're watching Thrive. And my special guest today is Robin Banks. And we are speaking about how to cultivate good relationships, whether they are romantic relationships or any other relationships. How do we cultivate and grow good relationships in our lives? I always say that relationships are constant opportunities for showing up as your best self. one of my invitations that I always put out to the listeners and the viewers, Robin, is that if at every moment that you feel challenged, you can stop and say, what would the best version of myself do in this situation? How would that person show up, that version of me, and make your decision from there? And I think, like you said, relationships will show you your shadows. They really do. It's like putting big mirrors up in front of you and going, but you did this. And then you kind of go, oh, yes, I did.
And the invitation is, this is going to sound very funny. The invitation is not to take it personally, and yet it is so personal.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's about going, wow, that aspect of myself, I didn't see that before, and actually embracing it and going, oh, I'm sorry that it affected you in this way, and then dealing with that aspect of yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And one of the organizations that highly recommend that the listeners look up is called the Imago therapy. You've heard of Imago, haven't you?
I think wasn't I the one who told you about Imago?
Oh, no, I did Imago in 2001 or 2000.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love Imago. I love Imago therapy. It's fantastic. I've read many of the books, yeah. And I've actually gone to Imago therapy stations as well. So, yeah.
Two things I want to share about Imago, which I hope people will find valuable, is I'll never forget going to Imago therapy with my lady at the time. And we were going because we wanted to work on our relationship and make our relationship better, and so I remember it was somewhere in Cape Town, somewhere in Sea Point. We went to this course, and the lady who was running it was a lady called Heidi. I forget her surname, and she was doing it with her husband Yumi. Heidi and Yumi, I think they were an Israeli couple. And she starts the workshop in the introduction. I think it was a 2 or 3 day workshop. I can't remember. And she starts the workshop saying, "Hi, I'm Heidi, and this is my husband, Yumi, and we'll be the facilitators of your workshop. And Heidi is my Yumi is my 9th husband." Can you hear this like ripple growth? Husband. And I'm like going, are you freaking kidding me? I'm going to take relationship advice from somebody who's been married 9 times. And so initially my mind is going like, even while she's talking, I'm like, how can I possibly take advice from somebody who's been married 9 times? I mean, like, and then and I'm listening to her, but I'm also thinking, well, I suppose if she's been married 9 times, she obviously has a lot of experience with relationships. So actually, she probably is a good teacher. So I'm trying to rationalize, okay, maybe I should give her a chance. And then she says, yeah, my first husband was a typical engineer, very cold, very distant, very reserved, very hard to communicate with, didn't communicate at all. And our relationship was tough, but, we managed, it was what it was. My second husband, though, was a little bit more communicative than he was. And then she keeps describing her husbands and how the husbands kind of improved as she went along. She seemed to make better choices in the husband she chose. But my 9th husband, Yumi, I mean, like, he's the ultimate for me. And we just get along. And then as you get to about husband number 7, you suddenly realize, oh my God, she's talking about the same guy. Mm. She's talking about the same person and how the relationship has evolved, that he's not the man she married. In fact, he's the 9th version of the guy she married, but he's not the same person. And here's what I love about that. Aren't we supposed to constantly grow and evolve? One of the biggest insults someone can give you, obviously not from a physical standpoint, people say, oh, you're exactly the same, Robert. I'm like, oh, thank you so much, thank you. But from a personal standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, if someone says to you, for who you are, oh, you're exactly the same as you were in your 20s, I'm like, are you kidding me? Am I still that arrogant, over-the-top guy? Because you want to grow and evolve. And so what I loved about it is the first part I want to share is, how do we grow together? How do we evolve together? And again, not just your significant other, which of course is a big focus, but even in your friendships, even in your work relationships, how do we use them as opportunities for growth? I'll give you an example. My business manager said something to me yesterday. And one of the things, it's something that I've been working on. So I've been working on being more present, being more focused, because sometimes I can be quite distracted, being more on time, being punctual, da, 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 da. So yesterday we had a meeting and I was perfectly on time. I was very focused. I was very present, but we have another meeting soon with a client. And the last time I was with this client, I was not very focused. I was extremely distracted. So my business manager said to me, by the way, Rob, in your meeting tomorrow, please can I ask you to just be more focused and more present? Oh, it felt like she had taken a knife and put it straight through my heart. And I took it so personally. And in retrospect, I was thinking she had every right to say that to me. Because the last time I felt that the way I showed up was not the best version of myself. But because I'd just done well in the meeting we had just had, and I'd showed up as the best version of myself, her mentioning it at that point was like putting a dagger through my heart, because here's one of my shadows. I am not sensitive. I am extremely sensitive. Extremely. You can say a small little thing, and for me, it feels massive. So all she did in that moment was make a comment which was very relevant, which I agree with. And at the time, I agreed with but the feeling was so hard for me. And I thought, what is this about? And this is the second thing that I learned from Imago. That when you have a disagreement with somebody else, when somebody triggers you, most of the time, it'll be 10% the actual event of what they're doing, and 90% will be your past experience being triggered. So you actually choose the partner you choose unconsciously, not at a conscious level. You tend to choose the person that is going to challenge you the most to grow, because they will push the button that you don't want pushed, the one that you protected for so long and made sure that this button stays well hidden and that your heart is closed like a cage because you've been hurt before. And then, of course, you fall in love with this person and you start opening your heart. And when you least expect it to go, what you don't realize is that at an unconscious level, at a much grander level, you've actually chosen that person to push that button. Now, when they push the button,
can I stop you for a second there, Banks? Because I've got a lot of people saying this is a great conversation and this is a great talk and everything, but I just want to include them in the conversation. So I just want to go back one step where Robin was talking about the fact that, in relationships, this woman was speaking about her 9 husbands. How many of you, and be honest now, have either said this or had this said to you? You are not the person I married, or you are not the person I fell in love with. Come on, be brave enough and say me in the comments below, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching a recording of this. Get into the conversation. We do go back and look at these comments. So jump into the conversation if you've said that before. And also, if there's somebody that you feel would benefit from this conversation, please tag them in the comments below or share the post so that people can start watching and joining the conversation. Sometimes constructive criticism can be taken personally. I agree. But if you reflect on it, sometimes you realize it's true and something you need to work on. Absolutely, Lauren. Brilliant comment. Absolutely. Me. Ha, 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 me. Okay, lots of comments coming in that they are part of this conversation and laughing. That is so fantastic. The reason why I say these things, guys, is because I'm constantly wanting you to know that you're not alone. Because the more we remove shame from these feelings that we have around these sorts of situations, the more we realize that we are actually so worth loving and so acceptable in our humanity, in just the humanness that we are. And one of those things is having these shadows that pop up. One of the things that you're talking about next, Robin, that I want to also just know, because you mentioned it earlier on and then you jumped. But one of the one of the wonderful things that I loved so much about Imago, and I think it's going to relate to exactly what you're saying now, and it'll be a lovely another entryway into what you're saying now, is that the way that they explained romantic relationships, which is the romantic phase of your relationship, that first marriage, if you will, or that first relationship, is that it is a peephole into the possibility of what lies ahead. And so we imagine if we went into a romantic relationship with that view, that for those first few months, it's giving us a little peephole, a little signal of what lies ahead if you work through what needs to be worked through. And you will always be attracting the person that will help you become the highest version of yourself. So they are going to be the people that are going to trigger you in order for you to become that highest version of yourself. But if you do the work, if you cultivate your relationships, if you work on your relationships like this invitation is, then that romantic relationship is 10x. It's just 10x. So that experience is 10x. How many of you leave a relationship just after the romantic period collapses because you realize this person is human and you realize they have faults and they're annoying and they challenge you and trigger you? How many of you have left a relationship before then at that point and not actually worked through it? I know I have. I know I totally have bailed. Who is brave enough to say me in the comments below? Please do join the conversation and just say me so that people know that they're not alone, because it's scary. It's scary to look at yourself and be honest and go, wow, that is an aspect of myself I wasn't seeing, and that I understand would trigger people. And how do I now embrace it and shift it so that I can deepen my relationship? So please, yes to both. Okay, I'm getting lots of yeses to both. That's great. Robin, have you done that? Have you actually?
No.
Be brave, Robin. Be honest. Be brave.
You are not alone. People often ask me, in the Mind Power course, people's lives are radically changed. And I always say to people, there will always be that one area of your life that has a root. Because one of the things we speak about in Mind Power is that your mind is like a garden of rich, fertile soil. And before you can sow new seeds, you have to take out the weeds. Because if you sow seeds into a garden that's full of weeds, they're not going to grow. And so here's the thing. We all have lots of weeds. We have negative belief systems. But some of our belief systems, our negative belief systems, are easy weeds to pull because they're, it's like tugging a little, clover leaf piece of grass, like you just pull it out with two fingers. Some of them have much stronger roots and they take more effort. Some of them really take a lot of effort, and some of them you need a shovel. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is that when I did the Mind Power course, for some reason, my belief systems about money, I was able to shift very quickly. Why? I don't know. I haven't shifted it completely, by the way, but I've made significant strides in my beliefs with money. And so that root was easier to weed. And within a month, I started noticing differences financially. Yeah, the relationship one, that one had a root on it. I mean, this big. And it took a long time for me to manifest the relationship I have today. In fact, it took a good 10 years, to be honest. So we all have belief systems that we need to work on. But here's the key. We need to work on them. We need to build relationships. We need to cultivate them, as you said. And so the thing is, are you willing enough to look at yourself and see your shadows? Because yesterday's experience for me is just perfect for our conversation today. I could see that I didn't like the way I was reacting and being oversensitive to a comment that was very justified. Yet it still affected me with all the wisdom and all the knowledge and all the stuff I know. It hit me so deep. And I was going, why is this affected me so much? And I had to go back to the 90%, because remember what I said earlier, that whenever you're dealing with a challenge in a relationship, most of the time, more than likely, it's 10% what your friend, your partner is saying, and 90% it pulls on that wound from the past.
Mm.
And I realized that, in fact, one of the things they say about being in relationships is that literally when you start arguing, you start arguing as 2 and 2-year-olds. Because it's like you can see you being completely irrational. You can see the way you're behaving is not adult behavior. I mean, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes in my current relationship, I don't like the way I'm being. I'm like, who is this person? And then I literally have to say to Nadia, babe, just realize you're dealing with the 8-year-old boy right now. The man is absent. And she's like, what's going on with you? I said, I think the boy is taken over because he's feeling wounded. So just realize that right now you're not speaking to a 50-year-old man. You're speaking to an 8-year-old boy who's coming from his wound. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it easier. It just makes us understand each other better.
Yeah.
And
Robin, that's one of the most important things I've also learned in relationships is that when I can consciously notice when my partner is turned into his wounded little child self, and then I greet him in that way. Literally, I greet him in that way, greeting him like I would a child that is wounded. And from that place, we move through the struggle so much quicker. Guys, it's just on 11 o'clock. So what do we do at 11 o'clock? We howl 3 times and we say, thank you, more, please. Robin, are you ready?
I'm
1,
ready.
2, 3. Thank you, more, please. So we do that to raise the vibration. Yes, we are still talking to Robin Banks, international speaker and mind power expert, and we're talking about cultivating relationships. And I think one of the things that you touched on there, Robin, which I think is very important, is that we put one of the biggest lessons if you're going to have a happy relationship is putting your pride aside, and it's not easy. And the other thing is being compassionate to yourself. You were saying that you are extremely sensitive, and that comes from a wound. Instead of judging yourself for reacting, how do we shift that and have compassion for where that wound came from? I think that is so important. Did you figure out where it came from?
Look, I've always been aware of the wound, and I think as a child, I often felt excluded. We all, by the way, I'm sure everybody knows this, but just in case, we all carry the wound of I'm not good enough. All of us have that. It's a universal, wound that we carry from a young age, that there's a part of us, no matter what we achieve, no matter what we have, there's a deep wound inside us that I am not good enough. In fact, there's a beautiful song that John Keogh has created around it. Beautiful song. I'll see if I can get it for your listeners. And so a big part, I didn't figure out specifically where, but here's the invitation, I think, as you are saying, Susana, is sometimes the way to be with your partner, if you can, is if you can, and here's part of the thing they teach in Imago, is if you can allow yourself to be big enough to, as you said, allow your partner to be their 8-year-old wounded child and be able to surround them with love and be able to say, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I can see you feeling wounded. Now, if you can do that, that can be very healing in the relationship. The challenge is if you're the 8-year-old feeling wounded, but you communicate to the 8-year-old girl who's feeling wounded, then it becomes hard, and which is what often happens. So often what happens is that we have wounded self speaking to wounded self, and when you're in wounded self, you don't hear anybody else. Because you in wound, I can't hear your wound, I'm dealing with my wound, and but you're not taking care of my needs. So what they recommend, if you can do this, is that they recommend this process called the canoe. And what you do is you get into a canoe with your partner or your friend. And what a canoe means is you literally sit opposite your partner, and your partner sits opposite you. So you can be sitting like this. So you are literally facing each other. And one person gets to express how they are feeling, what they are feeling troubled by. The other person, and here's the challenge, the other person doesn't get to speak about their wound. All they do is reflect what they hear. And I will never forget the first time I did this, and even watching other people do it. That often, so Susana, you'll say to me, Rob, Robin, you and I were having a conversation the other day, and you did something that really offended me, and you such and such and such and such. And then I will let you speak for a bit, and then I will reflect exactly what I heard you say, word for word. And here's the most amazing thing, is you will probably get 80% of what your partner is saying. But the piece you tend to leave out tends to be the most important thing, and you don't hear it. And I don't remember you saying that. And then the group, because you did it in front of her, yeah, no, she definitely said that. I'm like, really? Did you say that? So it's a weird thing about really being able to hear the other person. And here's where it takes bigness. And it does take maturity. It does take, what's the word I'm looking for? It does, like John and, let me finish, sorry, I do jump around. Let me finish the statement, and I want to share an example of it. It takes a bigger person to be able to step out of your wound and allow your partner's wound to be the one that we're working on, and you'll get your turn. So you'll get your turn. And it's not, by the way, let me just say this. It is not easy, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. So the point I'm getting at is John gives an example, and he says that sometimes him and Sylvia would, like if they're driving on a trip somewhere and they're both getting irritated and flustered and getting worked up about something. And what'll happen is that they'll make an agreement that, okay, you get to be the adult for the next hour. I get to bitch and moan and be in grumpy mood, and you sort out the directions because I'm feeling irritable. And even if both of them are feeling irritable, something magical happens when the one person goes, okay, I have to be the grown-up right now. And I have to be like, okay, I have to make sure that we get there. And my partner gets to be vulnerable. And it's a beautiful gift if you can give your partner the opportunity to be vulnerable, even if you don't feel like, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when there's some growth taking place, because you are able to see yourself, feel the feelings you are feeling, and as you said earlier, not become the feeling, not become the frustration. Go, oh, geez, I'm also feeling frustrated, but hold on, I need to be grown up right now. I need to step up, because when we do that, and we can do that for each other, it allows a lot of healing to take place.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things, I think the word you were looking for was humility, perhaps, Robin. But one of the things that I also loved about imago therapy, that I think keys into what you're saying now, is that one of the great human flaws, I think, of the way that we constructed in terms of creating it a challenging experience for us is our need to be right. Human beings have this innate need, and it is attached to ego. I'm telling you, it is attached to ego.
I think we should get a me on that one. Who knows that himself? Because that is so me. With all the stuff I've studied, I still want to be right.
Yeah. So how many of you out there can admit that you want to be right? Whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching a recording of it, just say, yep, me, or me too, just admit it. People want to be right. Individuals want to be right. There is something about not being right that creates a feeling of failure almost, or inadequacy almost. That kind of feeling. And what I loved about imago, I loved this so much, Robin, it literally shifted everything for me, was that in relationships, there is no right or wrong. There's only what has happened, how it affected you, how it made you feel, and how it affected me, and how it made me feel. And if I come from that place of wanting to understand, truly come from that place of wanting to understand how it affected you and how it made you feel and what my part was in that, and I take ownership for that, and you do the same, suddenly the relationship, the relating just evolves to a whole different level.
Beautiful.
The challenge here is that you need two people who are willing to do that. Because if there's one person who's going, I want to hear you, I want to understand, and the other one's going, but I'm right, and you just never get heard, it'll slowly wear you down, and eventually you'll go, but I also need a chance to be heard. I also need a chance to be heard. So does that make sense to you? And that's why the canoe, what you were speaking about now, makes so much sense, because it allows both people to be heard, just being heard and understood.
I so love what you're saying, Susana. It's so spot on. And this is what's cool about the canoe, is that each person gets to request their canoe time. So so if I request it from you, you have to be there and you have to listen. You have to just step up. And if you request it from me, but you don't do it at the same time. And that's, look, I must say to you, it hasn't worked 100% of the time for me. There were times where I'm like, that was I almost used the F word there. That was a stuff up. That went nowhere like I was planning for it to go. That was a real stuff up. But you know what? It's worth working at it, because why are we doing this? Remember what we started with, the quote from Carolyn Mace: relationships are the highest form of spiritual growth on the planet. Nothing is going to make you grow more if that is what you're about, which is certainly what I'm about. I'm wanting to grow and evolve and constantly be another person and be at another level. Nothing makes you evolve more than your relationships, because your relationships see you. And so what often happens for people, oh, I don't want to be in relationships. Oh, I don't want to be in relationships. Yeah, why? What is it about relationships that you don't want to be? Oh, it's too hard work. Yeah, but is it worth it? And I think it is worth it. And let me be honest with you, and this is my experience, and I think Carolyn May said it as well. Relationships bring, Tony Robbins said this. Relationships bring the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So if you think about the times when you felt the most ecstatic and the most euphoric in your life, more than likely it was when you were madly in love. If you think about the times when you felt absolutely gutted and heart-wrenched, more than likely it's when that love was taken away from you. So we tend to avoid it because we'd rather have this flatline experience, which isn't life. Life is highs and lows. Relationships is highs and lows. And another quote, just speaking about Tony Robbins, I'll never forget going to Date with Destiny in 2004 in Gold Coast in Australia. And Tony asks a question. How many of you in the room run your own businesses? And like 70% of us put up our hand. And he goes, yeah, achievers. And I went, yeah, I am an achiever. And then later in the same conversation, he says, now, how many of those of you who run your own businesses are single? And 70% of the 70% of us who put up our hands, including yours truly, I'm single. And he goes, yeah, do you want to know why? So I'm like, okay, why? He says, because, and what was the quote? The thing about relationships, he says, is that uncertainty, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the quote. It was such a beautiful quote. Uncertainty, the thing about relationships is they bring, I'm forgetting the quote and hopefully I'll remember it before the end of the session. But here's the point though. The thing about relationships is they bring too much uncertainty. Whereas your own business brings more certainty because it's up to you. So if the business succeeds, it's my business, I make it happen. If it doesn't happen, well, I failed. But the thing about relationships is I remember it. The quality of your life is directly related to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. I'll say it again.
Yeah.
The quality of your life is directly related to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. I'll say it one more time because it's a beautiful quote. The quality of your life is directly related to the amount of uncertainty that you can comfortably live with. Because the thing about relationships, Susana, is they are uncertain. Is today you love me and tomorrow you screw me. Or you don't, if you know what I mean. And so suddenly, I don't know how you're going to feel tomorrow. You might not love me anymore. and you love me today, so it's just too uncertain. So I'd rather run my own business because that gives me certainty. The relationship gives me uncertainty because I don't know if this relationship's going to last. So a relationship is much more risky because I can't control how you're going to feel. Yet, that's what makes it juicy. That's what makes it exciting.
And don't you find it ironic, Robin, that if you, and this sounds really weird, but if you use that same energy in your relationship as you did in your business, because in your business, you show up every day and do everything that it takes to make your business work. So if one area of your business isn't working, you don't go, oh, well, I'm just going to throw my business away. You go, oh, shit, how can I make this work? What can I do? Let me think out the box. Let me look at what I've got to, support me in changing this aspect of my business so that it does work. Why do so many of us not do that in our relationships? Why don't we apply the same commitment, want and desire and need? And I'll tell you why. I think it's because if your business fails, you are hurting yourself. But it is very scary when you love someone else, when you take that chance on someone else and you give them your love. There's a feeling of giving away of self and you don't know what's coming back. And one of the big shifts for me this time around in my relationship was I started and I said, who knows? You know your story, Robin, good, bad, who knows? You go into it and the reality is that who knows, guys? You can put everything into something and it can be gone in an instant. So you have to show up every second of every day and do your best to make it count. Thank you to everyone who sent their condolences over the last few days. I really, really appreciate it. But that is like a perfect example, of life can change in an instant and you don't know. Somebody can die, somebody can fall out of love, somebody you don't know. So all you can do is show up every day and be the best you can be, whether it is a romantic relationship or a friendship. And you guys, I hope you heard my invitation yesterday, is so many people are walking around. Robin, you spoke about one of the greatest wounds being the fact that none of us feel good enough. There's somewhere in us we have that wound. I think one of the other big wounds is this feeling of separation, that we are alone, on this planet. Especially now. And the rates of depression, guys, are at an all-time high. The rates of gender-based violence, these sort of things, they're at an all-time high. And the reality is it's coming from a place of desperation and fear and anger and hatred is actually just fear. Nobody hurts unless they are hurting. And there's a lot of people that are hurting at the moment. So my invitation to you yesterday was to reach out just for 5 minutes every day and tell someone what they've meant to you and that you care, and just check in with them just for 5 minutes every day, because so many people are feeling desperate and alone right now. We are at 11:21, so we do need to wrap up the show. I'm just going to, Robin, if you don't mind, there are some comments and questions that have come through. So Molly was saying, which I understand where her question is coming from. She says this imago therapy sounds amazing and the canoe sounds amazing, but she feels that girls would relate to this, but guys might find it a little more tedious, perhaps, and might battle with it a little bit more. What are your thoughts around that? Because
well, it all depends on the guy, I guess. I love it, and I'm a guy. But I do hear what Molly's saying is that, look, generally speaking, the criticism about us men is that we tend not to be in our feelings as much as women are. I mean, we tend not to be as committed to doing the work. And I do think, Molly, the one thing I would say, one of the things that Tony says as well, is that when choosing a relationship, selection is probably the biggest criteria. And be clear about what it is that you want in your relationship. So if that is where some of you are at, I mean, one of the programs I've got is called Attracting a Fabulous Relationship. And I listened to it for years. It's a CD by John Keogh, Affirmation Visualization CD. And making a list of exactly what it is that you want, the qualities you'd like the person to have, the qualities you wouldn't want them to have. And then you have to make a list of what's negotiable and what's not negotiable, because you will have to negotiate. And what I love about that, Molly, is that I promise you that there are men out there who are willing to do the work. I also promise you that there are men out there who think that they're not willing to do the work, who may be willing to do the work. So I do agree with you that generally speaking, it would be more women who, I mean, in personal growth workshops, I mean, in personal development, come to any of my seminars, they are always 65, 70% women to 30% men, 35% men. So no question that women, I mean, I have a belief system which I'm very happy to share, that I think that women are the more evolved species. And I mean that sincerely, that women are more willing to do the work. They're more open to doing the work. But I do know that there are a lot of amazing men out there who are also willing to do the work. And so the willingness to do the work is essential, because the relationship won't thrive if we are not both willing to do the work. And both my partner and I are very willing to do the work, and it's still challenging. And that's with the willingness to do the work. And we have a relationship coach. And in the relationship coach work, we both get to stay outside and speak about, yeah, but can you believe she, can you believe he, and so it does take work. And I want to emphasize this, not work as in like, oh, this is such a drag. Think of the benefits, because those highs, when you are so in love and you've grown and you've managed to pass the next level, and there's always going to be another level, the highs are so amazing, because I can honestly tell you that I am more in love with Nadia than I've ever been in my life before. And I'm not just saying that because that's mind power. I mean that sincerely. I am more in love with her than I've ever been. I can also tell you that 2 or 3 weeks ago, we went through like 10 days of hell. Now, Mercury was in retrograde. And even with all the stuff I knew, it was hell. And I actually said, you know what, I really love you, but I don't like you right now. And she says, good, I feel the same way. I don't like you right now. I said, good. But we stayed with it, Molly. We stayed with it. And that's the key and by the way, there is a time to leave a relationship. Just to say this, that not all relationships mean that they should be together forever. Some relationships are for a time or a season or for a great reason. Some of them, I suspect this is the longest one I've ever had. It's been 8 years. Up until that, it was 6 years. And before that, it was 3 years. And before that, it was like 1 year, and then 6 months and 3 months. And, I did a lot of work to get to this point. But I made a very clear list of what I wanted. The qualities I was willing to negotiate and the ones I was not willing to negotiate. And I made a clear list of who I need to become in order to manifest that relationship. And I made another list, which is a good list. Why are you a wonderful person to fall in love with? But anyhow, now we talk about another topic. The topic we speak about now is attracting a relationship, whereas we speak about building relationships. So I'm aware of our time, Susana. But there's a couple of secrets I'd like, or tools I'd like to just give. But let me just, I don't know if there are other questions or something.
Well, I just wanted to say that, that first of all, I have where everybody, guys, you will all go through this, where you go, mine is, I love you, but you're not my favorite person right now. So I just need some space, and we'll all go through those moments, but it's important to know that the other person knows that you love them. It's not that you don't love them, but they don't have to be your favorite person all the time, guys. That's human. It's human to be going through that. Also, Robin, Molly has been in a very successful relationship. I think she's been married for over 45 years or 48 years. There we go, 48 years. But I think that she just has a lot of insight into, she's got all boys as sons. So she's
more about this topic than you and I can't speak to
yeah, she's amazing. Molly is amazing. I know her very, very well. She is my brother's best friend and one of my best guy friends, Simon's mom. And so I've known her for years and years, and she has raised the most amazing sons, Robin, like amazing sons. The way they just show up and are willing to be there. I mean, Molly, keep going. You should have had a whole tribe of kids. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. But who else said something here that I wanted to just touch on? Nicole, I still do, but thankfully for growth and evolution, we can become mindful of it before we toss another soul away. So she was saying that she often will leave a relationship once it becomes challenging. Don't judge yourself for that. We've all done that. And it takes us very consciously going, okay, this is going to be worth it. Because the reality is that either way, you're going to get hurt, guys. That's the reality. Are you getting hurt by somebody? Is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, there's that saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you know it, Robin? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, you are going to be challenged in life. Choose your challenges. Which challenges are worth the squeeze? And I promise you, love is definitely one of those challenges that are worth the squeeze. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I love this talk. You guys are making me a bit emotional. Well, it's okay to be emotional. It's good to be emotional. It's good to feel what you feel and let it out. Yes, you can watch this on replay. Absolutely. Very interesting subject. Absolutely. This is amazing. Wonderful. Guys, I'm so glad that you are enjoying this. Please remember to tag any friends that you feel would benefit from this. And you can share this post on social media as well. Just to really, what we are trying to do is help people as much as possible. Give them information that will really help them as much as possible. And for me, Robin knows, although I have had a tumultuous time in relationships, like we all have, love at the end of the day is what it's all about. That's why we are here. So, Robin, we do need to wrap up, but you can give me your 3 very quick points before we go.
While I'm giving you my 3 points, Molly, this relationship that's been 48 years, I'd love to know, which husband is this that you are with now? Is it the same guy you married, or is this husband number 2, 3, 4, or 5? And you can let us know. Think about it for a moment.
All the way up to 9.
Okay.
All the way up to 9.
Or maybe more, who knows?
Yeah.
So just a couple of pointers I want to share just as ways forward for those of you. By the way, it sounds like we've been punting Imago. I'm not punting Imago. I don't even know if they're still around, but it was a great course. So if you want to look them up, please do. The other thing, which I'm pretty confident Susana's mentioned to you guys before, but if you haven't done it, please go online and do your 5 love languages. And what I'd recommend about the way you do it is, I think it's 5lovelanguages.com. There's a free assessment you can do. Here's what I recommend you do. Do yours and then do your partner's without showing them. And then get your partner to do theirs and yours without showing you, and then compare them. It is an amazing insight into the way you help understand each other. We don't have too much time, but it's a great process, and I'm sure Susana would have mentioned it. The other thing I wanted to say to you is be patient and loving with both yourself and your partner, which is a hard one, but we be patient with yourself. You're not going to get it right all the time. Sometimes I look at myself, and I'll be completely honest, I'll go, geez, I can be such an arsehole. I can behave like an absolute arsehole. Like Nadia said to me, you can be such an arsehole sometimes. I'm like, that's true, I can be an arsehole. How can I stop being such an arsehole sometimes, like how can I grow anymore? And so be patient with yourself and loving. If there's one thing I've learned to do, which has really helped, there's a couple of trigger words that I know. I once said to Nadia, I said, you can be such a bitch sometimes. And for some reason, that word triggers her. I've never used it again. I may have felt she's being a bitch, but I know that if I call her a bitch, it triggers something in her that really gets her. So I used it once and I saw the effect. And I vowed to myself that no matter how angry I am, I will never, like she actually said to me the other day, and you said and then you said I was a bitch. I said, I did not say you were a bitch. And she said, actually, you didn't. She said, but you thought it. I said, probably, but I didn't say it. So be aware of your partner's trigger words. Do you really want to use it, even in the moment when you feel like hurting them? So she knows my trigger word, and I need to give her credit. I said, she once cursed me and said, F you. And I said, when we start cursing each other in relationships, that's not healthy. I said, please don't ever say that to me again. And I need to give her a 10 out of 10. She used it once, and never again. She said, but we used to say that to ourselves. In my previous way, we said it all the time. I said, well, it doesn't work for me. Please don't say that to me. So just a hint, know your partner's trigger words. And then the last two things. Number one, make a commitment. Commit. If you feel that your relationship is the one, what I did, I used to have this thing, Susana, that I used to always have one foot out the door, always. And it was easy to leave because I made it an easy escape. And there's something magical that happens when you make a commitment. And I remember once in a relationship not feeling certain if it was the right relationship. So for those of you who might be in this, here's what I recommend you do. I gave myself, and I said to my partner, I said, you know what, for the next 6 months, I'm not going to question this relationship. I'm going to be 100% in, as opposed to going, shouldn't I? Is it the right person? Isn't it? And we had the most amazing 6 months. And then amazingly, she was invited to go and live in another country 6 months later. And I went, isn't that interesting timing? And she left and our relationship ended. And today she is still one of my best friends. And she wanted to get married and have 2 children, which she now has. And I didn't want to have children. It wasn't one of my goals. And today she lives very close by. We're the best of friends. And I hang out with her and her family. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but make a commitment, because the commitment is, and then the last thing, and this is the last one, keep the magic alive. What I mean by that is keep doing the things that keeps your partner interested. I'll never forget having a class party many years ago at my home. And I always walk my guests to the car. And as I walked this one couple to the car, I went to the lady's door to open her door for her. And I'll never forget the reaction. As I opened the door, her partner went, oh, no, man, no. And I was like, what? And she looked at me, she says, he never, ever opens the door for me. He says, I can get my own door. I'm capable enough. I said, okay, and I can complete. And by the way, that's completely relevant. I said, that's fine. I said, I don't have any judgment about it. I said, I'm sorry, I was just here opening the door. So, and that is fine. How weird, the very next couple, I'm walking them to the car. And as I'm walking them to the car, I walk towards the lady's door to open it. And her husband passes me with clear intent. And he opens the door for his wife. And because I just had the experience, I said, does he often open the door for you? And she says, always. And I thought, wow. And they'd been together for 17 years. And I went, wow. Now, I'm not saying you have to open the door for your partner. I'm just saying there are certain things that if we can keep that magic alive, watch the trigger word. Don't use it if you know it's going to hurt your partner. You're not committed to hurting them. You're committed to loving them. And even if you want to use it, because she's being such a bitch right now, I'm like, she doesn't like that word, Rob. Bite it down. And find out how you can actually rise above it, because truly relationships are an opportunity to grow and evolve in yourself, because it's not about reacting, it's about creating. So seriously, I've loved this topic as well. And as you can tell, Susana and I were like, well, how are we going to fill an hour? Yeah, no problem.
No, there's never a problem when you and I need to fill an hour, Robin, ever. So for those of you watching, the 5 love languages and imago therapy books are on my reading list. So if you are a part of the Thrive community, they are on my reading list, and you can just email us at thrive@susanakennedy.com to receive my my reading list, and you can do that anytime. I do want to say something about what Robin said about commitment. One of the most hurtful things that anybody can do to another person is have one foot out and one foot in a relationship. I know far too many people that have had their hearts slowly crumble because they are giving their all to a partner who has one foot in and one foot out of a relationship. I really believe that this is an opportunity for us all to live in integrity. If you want to be in a relationship, be in that relationship, be present in that relationship, be your best self in that relationship, whatever relationship it is, whether it's romantic or whether it's a friendship. And Robin, there was a study that was done, I can't remember if it was Harvard but it was one of those old schools. And there were 2 things that they said that they studied 100 couples over 100 years, and they just watched what happened. And there were 2 most common causes for relationships ending. And the one was when people stop making an effort. It's that losing interest, stop making an effort in that other person. And the other one was showing interest. One of the things that kept their relationships alive was showing interest, even if it doesn't interest you. So if you love birds and you see a little bird flying outside the window and you say, come and look at the bird, come and look at the bird. And I come to look at the bird because I know it means something to you. Those were the two things that kept the relationships going for the longest time. So constantly making an effort. You know, if you are going to open the door in the first 3 months of your relationship, make the effort to show up as that person and open the door for the rest of your relationship. Because so often relationships fall apart just after that first initial time because suddenly you don't feel as loved because that effort disappears. So that is my invitation to you. But thank you so much to everyone that is watching and that is tuned in today. Robin, thank you so much for your time and the wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Lots of love, guys. Bye for now.